The stagecoach lurched to a stop in front of the weathered wooden sign that read, "Welcome to Golden, Colorado Territory." And Jennifer Owens pressed her gloved hand against the foggy window, her heart sinking as she took in the dusty street and ramshackle buildings that would now be her home in this year of 1872. She had left Philadelphia 3 weeks ago with a leather-bound journal full of dreams, a trunk full of carefully selected trousseau items, and a heart full of hope that her intended husband, Charles Whitmore, would be the answer to her prayers after her father's debts had destroyed any chance of a proper marriage back east. The advertisement had promised a successful merchant seeking a refined wife, a comfortable home, and a fresh start in the growing Colorado Territory. What the advertisement had not mentioned was that Charles Whitmore had died of cholera 2 weeks before her arrival, taking with him every dream she had dared to nurture during the long, uncomfortable journey west. The stage driver, a grizzled man with tobacco-stained teeth, opened the door and offered his hand. "Miss Owens, I reckon somebody from the Whitmore store should be here to meet you." Jennifer gathered her traveling cloak around her shoulders and stepped down onto the dusty street, her button-up boots sinking slightly into the dirt. The mountain air was thinner here than back home, and she took a moment to steady herself, breathing in the scent of pine mixed with horse manure and wood smoke. Other passengers hurried past her toward the general store and saloon, but Jennifer stood frozen, her hands clutching her reticule as she scanned the sparse crowd for anyone who might be looking for her. A tall man approached from across the street, his worn cowboy hat shading his face from the afternoon sun. He moved with the easy confidence of someone who belonged to this harsh landscape, his boots kicking up small clouds of dust with each step. When he stopped in front of her and removed his hat, Jennifer found herself looking into the most striking blue eyes she had ever seen, set in a sun-weathered face that might have been anywhere from 25 to 30 years old. "Miss Jennifer Owens." His voice was low and steady, with a slight drawl that marked him as someone who had spent considerable time in the saddle. "Yes, I am she." Jennifer tried to keep her voice from trembling. "Are you associated with Mr. Whitmore's establishment?" The man's expression grew somber and he twisted his hat in his hands. "I am Lucas Shaw, miss. I worked for Charles Whitmore, managed his cattle operation outside of town. I am afraid I have some difficult news. He is dead, is he not?" Jennifer said quietly, surprising herself with how steady her voice sounded. "I can see it in your face." Lucas looked at her with what might have been respect. "Yes, miss. He passed 2 weeks back. The cholera came through town fast and took 12 souls with it. I am truly sorry you made the journey all this way for nothing." Jennifer closed her eyes briefly, feeling the last of her carefully constructed hopes crumble like dry autumn leaves. She had known the risk of coming west, had understood that nothing was guaranteed, but standing here in this strange town with nowhere to go and no one to turn to made the reality feel impossibly heavy. "I see," she managed. "Thank you for informing me, Mr. Shaw. I suppose I should inquire about the return stage schedule." "Return stage does not come back through for another 3 weeks," Lucas said, watching her carefully. "And even then, the fare is considerable. Did Whitmore send you money for the journey?" Jennifer felt heat rise in her cheeks. "He sent enough for passage west. I used what little savings I had for appropriate clothing and necessities. I did not anticipate needing a return fare." Lucas was quiet for a moment, studying her with those clear blue eyes. Then he said something that surprised her. "Miss Owens, would you allow me to buy you supper at the hotel dining room? It has been a long journey and you must be hungry. We can discuss what options might be available to you." Every bit of Eastern propriety Jennifer had been raised with told her to refuse. that accepting such an offer from a stranger was improper. But propriety seemed like a luxury she could no longer afford, and the genuine concern in Lucas Shaw's face made her want to trust him. "That is very kind of you, Mr. Shaw. I accept." The hotel dining room was modest but clean, with checkered tablecloths and the smell of fresh bread filling the air. Lucas carried her trunk inside and arranged for a room, insisting on paying for her first night's lodging before she could protest. As they sat across from each other at a corner table, Jennifer removed her gloves and bonnet, acutely aware of how out of place she must look in her fashionable traveling dress among the roughly dressed miners and cowboys who filled the other tables. The proprietor's wife, a kindly woman named Martha who looked to be in her 50s, brought them plates of roast beef, potatoes, and carrots. Jennifer realized she had not eaten since breakfast that morning in Denver, and despite her turmoil, her body demanded sustenance. "Tell me about yourself, Miss Owens," Lucas said after they had eaten in silence for a few minutes. "What brought you to answer Whitmore's advertisement?" Jennifer hesitated, then decided that honesty was the only path forward. "My father was a banker in Philadelphia. When he died last year, we discovered he had made several unwise investments and left considerable debts. My mother and I were forced to sell our home and most of our possessions. She went to live with her sister in Boston, but my aunt made it clear there was not room for both of us. I saw Mr. Whitmore's advertisement in a newspaper and thought perhaps I could build a new life here, contribute to a growing community, and find some measure of security and purpose." "That took courage," Lucas said quietly. "Leaving everything you knew to come to a place like this." "Or desperation," Jennifer replied with a bitter smile. "I am not certain courage had much to do with it. I disagree." Lucas set down his fork and looked at her directly. "Desperation makes people reckless. Courage makes them calculated. You came prepared, properly dressed, with a plan." "That is courage, Miss Owens." Jennifer felt unexpected tears prick her eyes at his words. No one had called her courageous since this ordeal began. Most people back home had looked at her with pity or disdain, whispering about the banker's daughter who had fallen so far she had to become a mail-order bride. "What will you do now?" Lucas asked gently. "I genuinely do not know," Jennifer admitted. "I have very little money. Perhaps I could find work as a seamstress or a teacher, if the town has need of such services. Golden has a school teacher already, old Miss Patterson, and she is not planning to retire anytime soon. As for sewing, most women here do their own mending." Lucas paused, seeming to wrestle with something internally. "Miss Owens, I have a proposition for you, and I want you to hear me out completely before you respond." Jennifer tensed, afraid of what he might suggest. She had heard stories of what happened to women alone in the West, the compromising positions they sometimes found themselves forced into. Lucas must have seen her fear because he quickly continued, "Nothing improper, I assure you. Here is my situation. I have a ranch about 5 miles outside of town, 200 acres that I have been working to build up for the past 3 years. I run about 50 head of cattle and have plans to expand. It is hard work and lonely work, and I have been thinking for some time now about finding a wife to share the burden and the rewards. You want me to marry you." Jennifer's voice came out higher than she intended. "But you do not even know me. I know you are brave enough to travel across the country for a new life. I know you are educated, well-mannered, and honest. I know you need a place to belong, and I need a partner to help build something lasting." Lucas leaned forward, his expression earnest. "I am not promising romance or fairy tales, Miss Owens. What I am offering is a partnership, a working relationship that could grow into something more over time. You would have a home, safety, and a purpose. I would have helped building the ranch and the companionship of someone who shares the work. "This is absurd," Jennifer said, but even as the words left her mouth, she was considering it. "We are strangers." "Were you not planning to marry Charles Whitmore, also a stranger?" Lucas pointed out reasonably. "At least I am here in front of you, alive and able to have this conversation. You can ask anyone in town about my character. I do not drink to excess, I do not gamble, and I do not raise my hand to anyone weaker than myself. I work hard, I pay my debts, and I keep my promises." Jennifer stared at him, trying to see past the weathered face and work-hardened hands to the man beneath. There was something solid about Lucas Shaw, something that reminded her of the foundation stones of old buildings back east, dependable and true. "Why me?" she asked. "You could court any number of women. Take your time finding someone suitable. There are not many unmarried women in Golden, and most of them are spoken for or have their sights set on minors who strike it rich," Lucas said. "I am a simple rancher, Miss Owens. I do not have gold or silver to offer, just land and cattle and hard work. That does not appeal to most women. But you came here looking for exactly what I am offering, a chance to build something real and lasting." "I do not love you," Jennifer said bluntly. "I do not love you either," Lucas replied with equal honesty. "But I respect what I have seen of you so far, and respect is a better foundation than infatuation. Love, real love, grows from working side by side, from facing hardships together, from building trust day by day. If we do this, Miss Owens, we would have the chance to build that together." Jennifer's mind raced through her limited options. She could try to find work in town, but Lucas was right that opportunities were scarce. She could use what little money she had to travel to another town, but she would face the same problems there. She could try to reach out to distant relatives, but the shame of returning east as a failure was almost unbearable to contemplate. Or she could take a leap of faith with this stranger, who at least seemed honest and straightforward in his intentions. "If I were to consider this," Jennifer said slowly, "I would need certain assurances. I would need to know that I have some autonomy, some say in the decisions that affect our lives. I would need to know that you would treat me as a partner, not as a servant or property." "I give you my word on that," Lucas said immediately. "I want a partner, Miss Owens, not a servant. If you agree to this, we would make decisions together. The ranch would belong to both of us, legally. I would be willing to draw up papers to that effect. I would also need time," Jennifer continued, her heart pounding. "Time to adjust, to get to know you properly before any marital intimacies are expected." Lucas's ears turned slightly red, but he nodded firmly. "Of course. We would move at whatever pace you are comfortable with. I am not a monster, Miss Owens. I understand this would be a difficult adjustment for you." Jennifer took a deep breath, aware that she was standing at a crossroads that would determine the entire course of her life. She thought about her mother's disappointed face when she had left Philadelphia, about the sneering comments from her former friends, about the dreams she had written in her journal during the long journey west. Those dreams were broken now, shattered like glass on stone. But Lucas Shaw was offering her the chance to build new dreams, different dreams perhaps, but real ones nonetheless. "I will need to see the ranch before I make a final decision," Jennifer said, "and speak with some people in town about your character as you suggested." "Fair enough," Lucas agreed. "Take tomorrow to settle in and ask whatever questions you need to ask. The day after, I will take you out to see the property. If you decide it is not for you, I will help you find another solution. I give you my word." They finished their meal in a more companionable silence, and Lucas escorted Jennifer to her room on the second floor of the hotel. As she unpacked her trunk and prepared for bed, Jennifer looked out the window at the unfamiliar landscape of mountains and stars brighter than she had ever seen back east. She had come here with broken dreams. It was true. But perhaps, just perhaps, there was something valuable in the opportunity to start fresh, to build something new from the ground up with someone who seemed to value honesty and hard work as much as she did. The next morning, Jennifer dressed in a simple day dress and ventured out to explore Golden and make inquiries about Lucas Shaw. Her first stop was the general store, where a friendly woman named Sarah Cooper was manning the counter while her husband unloaded supplies from a freight wagon. "Lucas Shaw," Sarah said warmly when Jennifer carefully brought up his name. "Oh, he is one of the good ones, miss. Been working that ranch of his like a man possessed for 3 years now. Came here from Kansas with just a horse and a wagon. Bought that land for a song because everyone said the soil was too rocky and the creek too unreliable. But Lucas made it work through sheer determination. He is honest in his dealings, pays his bills on time, and helped my husband build our new storage shed last summer without asking for anything in return." Jennifer felt some of her anxiety ease. She spent the rest of the morning talking to various townspeople, including the banker, the preacher, and Martha from the hotel. Every single person had similar things to say about Lucas Shaw. He was hardworking, honest, fair in his dealings, and respected throughout the community. Several people mentioned that he kept to himself mostly, focused on building up his ranch, and that he had turned down several offers from families trying to match him with their daughters. "I think the man has a specific vision for his life," the preacher, Reverend Thomas, told her. "He is not interested in games or pretense. If Lucas Shaw says he will do something, you can count on it being done." That afternoon, Lucas came to the hotel and took Jennifer on a walking tour of Golden. The town was small but growing, with several hundred residents and more arriving every week as news of silver strikes in the surrounding mountains spread. There was a schoolhouse, 2 churches, 3 saloons, a doctor's office, a blacksmith, the general store, and various other establishments that served the needs of both the permanent residents and the transient miners passing through. "It is not Philadelphia," Lucas said as they walked past a group of miners arguing loudly outside one of the saloons. "It can be rough and dangerous at times, but there are good people here, people trying to build something lasting." "I can see that," Jennifer said thoughtfully. She had noticed that despite the rough edges, there was a sense of community in Golden that had been lacking in the more established, but also more stratified society she had left behind. That evening, over another meal in the hotel dining room, Lucas told her more about his background. He had grown up on a small farm in Kansas, the youngest of 4 brothers. When his parents died within a year of each other, the farm had gone to his oldest brother, as was traditional, and Lucas had struck out west to find his own land and future. "I spent 2 years working as a ranch hand for a big outfit near Denver," he explained. "Learned everything I could about managing cattle, reading the land, surviving the winters. Saved every penny I could, and when I heard about cheap land available near Golden, I came to investigate. The moment I saw the property, I knew it was meant to be mine." "What made you so certain?" Jennifer asked, intrigued despite herself. "The creek runs year-round, fed by snowmelt from the mountains. The land is rocky in places, yes, but there are good meadows for grazing and stands of timber for building. And the view, Miss Owens, the view of the mountains at sunrise is something that makes all the hard work worthwhile." He smiled, and Jennifer saw genuine passion in his expression. "I want to build something that lasts, something I can be proud of. A home, a thriving ranch, maybe eventually a family, something real and solid." Jennifer found herself drawn to his vision despite her initial reservations. There was no pretense in Lucas Shaw, no false promises or exaggerated claims. He was offering her exactly what he had, nothing more and nothing less, and leaving the decision entirely in her hands. "Take me to see it," Jennifer said impulsively. "Tomorrow morning I want to see this land of yours." Lucas's face broke into a genuine smile, and Jennifer realized it was the first time she had seen him truly smile. It transformed his face, making him look younger and more approachable. "I will have a wagon here at 8 o'clock. Dress practical, the road is rough in places." The next morning dawned clear and cool, with the promise of warmth later in the day. Jennifer wore her most practical dress and sturdy boots, and covered her hair with a simple bonnet. Lucas arrived precisely at 8 with a well-maintained wagon pulled by 2 strong horses. He helped her up onto the bench seat, and they set off down the main street and out onto a winding road that led into the foothills. As they traveled, Lucas pointed out various landmarks and explained the layout of the surrounding ranches and properties. He clearly knew every inch of this country, could read the land the way Jennifer had once read books in her father's library. He showed her where a wildfire had burned through several years before, where the best fishing spots were along Clear Creek, and where a family of black bears had a den. "You have to respect the land and the creatures that live here," Lucas explained. "Take only what you need, give back where you can, and understand that you are sharing this space with forces bigger than yourself." After about an hour, Lucas turned the wagon onto a smaller track that wound up a gentle slope. They crossed a sturdy wooden bridge over a creek that danced and sparkled in the morning sun, and then the land opened up before them. Jennifer caught her breath at the sight. The ranch spread across a beautiful valley, protected on 3 sides by pine-covered hills. A meadow thick with wild grasses rippled in the breeze, and beyond it, Jennifer could see cattle grazing peacefully. To the left, closer to the creek, stood a log cabin that was small but appeared well built, with a stone chimney and a covered porch. There were several outbuildings including a barn, a corral, and what looked like a chicken coop. And behind it all, the majestic peaks of the Rocky Mountains rose against the brilliant blue sky. "This is beautiful," Jennifer breathed, forgetting for a moment all her worries and uncertainties. Lucas beamed with pride. "Wait until you see the sunrise from the porch. It is like watching the hand of God paint the sky." He drove the wagon up to the cabin and helped Jennifer down. Up close, she could see that everything was well maintained despite the obvious signs of hard use. The porch had a bench that looked hand-hewn, and next to the door, someone had planted wildflowers that were just beginning to bloom. "I am not much of a gardener," Lucas admitted, following her gaze, "but it seemed like a cabin should have flowers." He opened the door and stepped back to let Jennifer enter first. The interior was dim after the bright sunlight, but as her eyes adjusted, Jennifer took in the single large room that served as kitchen, dining area, and living space. There was a stone fireplace with a cooking pot hanging from a hook, a sturdy wooden table with 2 chairs, shelves lined with supplies, and in one corner, a bed covered with what appeared to be a quilt in a wedding ring pattern. "The bed would be yours if you decide to stay," Lucas said quickly. "I would sleep in the barn until such time as we both decided otherwise." Jennifer walked slowly around the space, running her hand along the smooth wood of the table, examining the neat rows of canned goods on the shelves, and peering out the small window that overlooked the meadow. It was simple, almost primitive compared to what she had known, but it was also clean, well organized, and solidly built. She could see the care that Lucas had put into every aspect of this place. "There is a root cellar out back for storage," Lucas continued, seemingly nervous about her silence. "The barn has room for expansion when we can afford more cattle. The creek never runs dry, even in the hottest summers." And I have been planning to add another room to the cabin, maybe even 2 rooms if there was need for it. Jennifer turned to face him, and she saw in his eyes both hope and fear. This man was offering her everything he had built, everything he had worked for, and trusting that she would not reject it out of hand. "It is a lot of work for one person," Jennifer said carefully. "It is," Lucas admitted. "I wake before dawn and work until after dark most days. During calving season or haying time, I barely sleep at all. It would be easier with 2 people, with a partner to share the load." "What would you expect me to do?" Jennifer asked practically. "I have no experience with ranching or farming. I can read and write, I can sew and embroider, I can play the piano and speak passable French. None of those skills seem particularly useful here." "You can learn," Lucas said simply. "And those skills you mention, they are not worthless. You could keep the books for the ranch, handle correspondence with buyers and suppliers. You could make and mend our clothes, saving money. And as for the piano and French, well, maybe those are reminders that life is about more than just work. Maybe having someone here who values beauty and learning would make this place a true home instead of just a work camp." Jennifer walked to the window again, looking out at the peaceful valley. She thought about her life back east, the constant pressure to maintain appearances, the endless social obligations that had meant everything and nothing at the same time. She thought about her mother's tears when they had sold the house, about the pitying looks from former friends who were relieved it was not their family facing ruin. And then she thought about the possibility before her now. A chance to build something real, to be valued for her contributions rather than her family name or social connections. A partner who spoke to her honestly and offered her respect rather than empty flattery. A beautiful place where she could watch sunrises paint the mountains and fall asleep to the sound of creek water singing over stones. It was not the dream she had imagined when she left Philadelphia. But perhaps it was something better, something more real and lasting. Jennifer turned back to Lucas, and she saw him watching her with patient attention, not pushing or pressuring, just waiting for her decision. In that moment, she made her choice. "I want certain things to be clear before I agree," Jennifer said, and she saw Lucas straighten with attention. "I will work hard and contribute everything I can to building this ranch, but I expect to be treated as an equal partner in all decisions. I want it legally documented that I have ownership stake in this property. I want time to adjust to this life and to this marriage before all aspects of it are expected of me. And I want honesty between us always, even when the truth is difficult." "You have my word on all of that," Lucas said solemnly. "I will have papers drawn up at the bank establishing your ownership. We will move at whatever pace you need, and I promise to always tell you the truth, Miss Owens. Always." "Then yes," Jennifer said, feeling as though she were stepping off a cliff into unknown waters. "Yes, I will marry you, Lucas Shaw." The smile that broke across Lucas's face was like the sun emerging from behind clouds. He crossed the room and took her hand gently in his work-roughened one. "I promise you, Miss Owens, we will build new dreams together. Different dreams than you had before, perhaps, but good ones. Real ones." Jennifer felt tears prick her eyes, but they were not tears of sadness. They were tears of relief, of hope, of the strange sense that despite all the brokenness that had brought her here, she might have found exactly where she was meant to be. They were married 3 days later by Reverend Thomas in the small church at the edge of town. Sarah Cooper stood as witness, along with her husband James. Jennifer wore her best dress, a deep blue silk that had survived the journey, and Lucas wore a new shirt he had purchased from the general store, looking uncomfortable but determined in the unfamiliar formal clothing. The ceremony was simple and brief. When Reverend Thomas pronounced them husband and wife, Lucas kissed Jennifer's cheek gently, a gesture that was more respectful than passionate, and Jennifer felt a wave of gratitude that he was keeping his promise to move at her pace. After the ceremony, several townspeople gathered at the hotel for a modest celebration. Martha had prepared a special meal, and the banker, Mr. Harrison, presented them with the legal documents establishing Jennifer's co-ownership of the ranch property. Jennifer signed her new name for the first time, Jennifer Shaw, and felt the strangeness and rightness of it simultaneously. As evening approached, Lucas loaded Jennifer's trunk into the wagon, and they began the journey to the ranch, to their home. Jennifer watched the town recede behind them, feeling as though she were leaving behind the last remnants of her old life and fully embracing this new reality. The ranch looked different in the golden light of late afternoon, softer somehow and more welcoming. Lucas helped Jennifer down from the wagon and carried her trunk inside, setting it carefully near the bed. "I will get my things and head to the barn," Lucas said, gathering up a bedroll and a change of clothes. "You take whatever time you need to settle in and make this space your own. I will be up at the barn if you need anything." "Lucas," Jennifer said, and he turned back to look at her. "Thank you, for your patience, for your honesty, for all of this." "No need for thanks," Lucas said gently. "We are partners now, Jennifer. Your comfort and happiness matter to me." After he left, Jennifer spent the evening unpacking her belongings and arranging them in the small space. She set her books on a shelf, hung her dresses on pegs along the wall, and placed her mother's photograph on the small table beside the bed. The physical act of arranging her possessions helped her feel more grounded, more connected to this new reality. As darkness fell, Jennifer lit the oil lamp and sat at the table with her leather journal. She had not written in it since learning of Charles Whitmore's death, but now she felt compelled to record this momentous day. "Dear Diary," she wrote, "today I married a stranger and moved to a log cabin in the Colorado Territory. By all rights, I should be terrified. Instead, I find myself cautiously hopeful. Lucas Shaw is not what I expected when I left Philadelphia. He offers no luxury, no easy life, no grand romance. But he offers honesty, respect, and the chance to build something meaningful. My old dreams are broken beyond repair, but perhaps that simply means I have the opportunity to build better dreams, stronger ones, dreams based on reality rather than fantasy. I am Mrs. Jennifer Shaw now, and I am determined to make the most of this second chance." The next morning, Jennifer woke to the smell of coffee and bacon. She dressed quickly and stepped outside to find Lucas cooking breakfast over an open fire near the cabin. The sun was just cresting the mountains, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, and Jennifer understood immediately what Lucas had meant about the view making all the hard work worthwhile. "Good morning," Lucas greeted her, looking slightly uncertain. "I thought you might appreciate breakfast, though I should warn you my cooking is basic at best." "It smells wonderful," Jennifer said honestly, accepting the plate he handed her. They sat together on the porch bench, eating in companionable silence and watching the day fully arrive. After breakfast, Lucas began teaching Jennifer about the daily rhythms of ranch life. He showed her how to gather eggs from the chickens, how to milk the cow he kept for their personal dairy needs, and how to read the signs that indicated the cattle were healthy and content. Jennifer listened intently, trying to absorb everything, though she knew it would take time before any of this felt natural. "Do not expect to learn it all at once," Lucas said kindly, when he noticed her frustrated expression after struggling to milk the cow. "It took me months to get comfortable with all of this, and I had some experience from growing up on a farm. You will get the hang of it." Jennifer appreciated his patience, though she felt keenly the gap between the skills she possessed and the skills this life required. However, she was determined to prove herself useful. While Lucas rode out to check on the cattle that afternoon, Jennifer tackled the cabin with vigor, scrubbing surfaces, organizing supplies more efficiently, and making careful notes about what items were running low so she could compile a list for their next trip to town. That evening, she insisted on cooking supper despite her limited experience. The result was edible if not particularly inspired, but Lucas ate every bite and thanked her sincerely. "It is nice to eat something I did not cook myself," he said, "and to have company while eating it." "Tell me about your plans for the ranch," Jennifer said, wanting to understand the vision Lucas was working toward. "What do you hope to accomplish in the next year, 5 years, 10 years?" Lucas's eyes lit up, and he spent the next hour outlining his dreams. He wanted to expand the herd gradually, improving the quality of the cattle through careful breeding. He hoped to add pigs and more chickens, making the ranch more self-sufficient. Eventually, he wanted to breed horses, which brought better prices than cattle if you could develop a reputation for quality animals. And he dreamed of building a larger house, something that could accommodate a growing family and possibly even hired help as the operation expanded. "But all of that takes time and money," Lucas said pragmatically. "For now, we focus on getting through each season successfully, building our savings bit by bit, and establishing our reputation for honest dealings and quality livestock." "I could help with the financial records," Jennifer offered. "My father taught me bookkeeping before everything fell apart. I could track our expenses and income, help you see where the money is going and where we might improve efficiency." "That would be incredibly helpful," Lucas said, looking pleased. "I keep rough notes, but I am not good at organizing the information in any useful way." Over the following weeks, Jennifer threw herself into learning her new life. The work was exhausting in ways she had never experienced. Her hands, once soft and carefully tended, developed calluses and small cuts. Her back ached from bending over the garden Lucas helped her plant near the cabin. Her arms trembled from carrying water and feed. But there was also a satisfaction she had never known in her previous life, the satisfaction of seeing direct results from her labor. She learned to make bread, though her first several attempts were dense and barely edible. She learned to preserve vegetables, to churn butter, to patch clothing and blankets. She took over the bookkeeping as promised and discovered that Lucas was in better financial shape than she had expected. He lived frugally and saved diligently, and his cattle were gaining a reputation for being healthy and well managed. Lucas, for his part, proved to be a patient teacher and a considerate husband. He never criticized her mistakes, only offered gentle corrections and encouragement. He continued sleeping in the barn without complaint, though he built himself a more comfortable space there with a proper bed frame and mattress. He brought her wildflowers sometimes, presented without fanfare, just set on the table in a tin cup filled with water. And he talked with her every evening, sharing his thoughts and listening to hers, slowly building the foundation of genuine friendship between them. One morning about 6 weeks after their marriage, Jennifer woke to find Lucas sitting on the porch, staring at the mountains with an expression of deep concern. She brought him coffee and sat beside him. "What is wrong?" she asked directly. "Storm coming," Lucas said, pointing to clouds building over the peaks. "Could be bad. I need to bring the cattle down from the high meadow and make sure everything is secured. It is going to be a long day." "Tell me what I can do to help," Jennifer said immediately. Lucas looked at her with surprise and then gratitude. "Can you handle the wagon? I need to bring extra feed to the near pasture, but I cannot be 2 places at once." "I can learn," Jennifer said firmly, pushing down her nervousness. Lucas gave her a quick lesson in handling the wagon and team, and then they split up to prepare for the storm. Jennifer found herself driving the wagon along rough tracks, her heart pounding but her hands steady on the reins, hauling feed to where Lucas directed. She helped him herd the cattle, learning how to move around them without spooking them. She secured the chickens and covered the wood pile, working until her muscles screamed in protest. The storm hit that evening with furious intensity. Rain lashed the cabin, and wind howled through the valley. Lightning illuminated the landscape in brilliant flashes, and thunder shook the very ground. Jennifer huddled inside, worried about Lucas up at the barn alone, worried about the cattle, worried about everything they had worked so hard to build. Around midnight, there was a pounding on the door. Jennifer opened it to find Lucas, soaked to the skin and covered in mud. "One of the cows is calving, having trouble," he said shortly. "I need dry clothes and then I have to get back to the barn. The first time mothers sometimes need help." "I am coming with you," Jennifer said, already reaching for her cloak. "Jennifer, you do not need to, we are partners," Jennifer interrupted firmly. "You said so yourself. I am coming." They ran through the storm to the barn where a young cow was indeed struggling with her first calf. Lucas worked with practiced efficiency, and Jennifer assisted as he directed, holding the lantern steady and providing extra hands when needed. It was messy, exhausting work, but when the calf finally emerged, wet and wobbly but alive, Jennifer felt a surge of triumph. "You did good," Lucas said, looking at her with genuine admiration. "Real good, Jennifer." They stayed in the barn for the rest of the night, making sure the calf nursed successfully and that the mother was recovering well. As dawn broke, the storm passed, leaving the land washed clean and sparkling. Lucas and Jennifer walked back to the cabin together, muddy and exhausted but feeling a sense of shared accomplishment. "I should clean up and get some rest before starting the day's work," Lucas said as they reached the porch. "Lucas," Jennifer said, catching his hand, "you do not have to go back to the barn, not anymore, not if you do not want to." Lucas looked at her with surprise and hope. "Are you sure?" "I am sure," Jennifer said softly. "You have been patient and kind, and you have kept every promise you made to me. I trust you, Lucas Shaw. And more than that, I have come to care for you deeply. This partnership we have built, it is a good foundation. I think we are ready to build more on top of it." Lucas pulled her gently into his arms, and Jennifer rested her head against his chest, hearing the steady beat of his heart beneath her ear. They stood like that for a long moment, just holding each other as the sun rose over the mountains, painting the world in shades of gold and promise. "I have been falling in love with you," Lucas said quietly, his voice rough with emotion. "Watching you tackle this life with such determination, seeing you laugh when something goes right and pick yourself up when something goes wrong, sharing meals and conversations and dreams with you. Jennifer, you are everything I did not even know I needed." "I love you too," Jennifer whispered, and realized as she said it that it was absolutely true. "I came here with broken dreams, but you kept your promise, Lucas. We built new dreams together, better dreams than I ever could have imagined." Lucas tilted her face up and kissed her properly for the first time. A kiss full of tenderness and promise, and the passion that had been carefully banked, but never absent. Jennifer kissed him back, feeling her heart open fully to this man who had given her a home, a purpose, and a love built on the solid foundation of respect and partnership. They spent that day resting and deepening their understanding of each other. Lucas moved his belongings back into the cabin, and that night they truly became husband and wife in every sense. Jennifer discovered that the attraction she had felt growing over the past weeks blossomed into something beautiful and right. a physical expression of the emotional bond they had forged through hard work and honest communication. The summer passed in a blur of hard work and growing contentment. Jennifer's skills improved dramatically, and she found herself actually enjoying much of the ranch work. She loved tending the garden and watching the vegetables grow under her care. She took pride in her improving cooking, even if she would never be an exceptional cook. And she discovered a real aptitude for the financial side of ranching, helping Lucas make informed decisions about when to sell cattle, what supplies to purchase, and how to negotiate better prices with buyers. In August, Lucas took Jennifer to a barn dance in town, one of the major social events of the summer. Jennifer wore her best dress, and Lucas looked handsome in clean clothes with his hair neatly trimmed. They danced together, and Jennifer felt the eyes of the other townspeople on them, watching with approval the obvious affection between them. "That Lucas Shaw sure found himself a good wife," she heard someone comment, "and she seems happy as a lark, despite the hard life out on that ranch." "I am happy," Jennifer told Lucas later as they drove home under a sky full of stars. "Happier than I ever was back east, if you can believe that." "I believe it," Lucas said, squeezing her hand, "because I feel the same way. This life is hard, but it is good. And sharing it with you makes it better than I ever dreamed possible." As autumn arrived, painting the aspens gold and bringing crisp, cool air down from the mountains, Jennifer began to suspect that she might be pregnant. She waited until she was certain before telling Lucas, wanting to be sure before she got his hopes up. One evening in late September, as they sat together on the porch watching the sunset, Jennifer took Lucas's hand and placed it on her still flat stomach. "There is someone else who will be helping us build our dreams," she said softly. "Come next spring if all goes well." Lucas's eyes widened, and then he let out a whoop of joy that probably echoed all the way to town. He picked Jennifer up and spun her around, laughing with pure delight. "We are going to have a baby?" he asked, as if he needed confirmation. "We are going to have a baby," Jennifer confirmed, laughing at his enthusiasm. Lucas set her down carefully, suddenly worried. "Are you feeling well? Do you need to see the doctor? Should you be doing less work?" "I am perfectly healthy," Jennifer assured him. "And I can continue with normal activities for quite some time yet. But yes, we should visit Dr. Hendricks in town soon, just to make sure everything is progressing as it should." That winter was difficult, with heavy snows and brutal cold, but Jennifer and Lucas faced it together, prepared and united. They spent the long evenings by the fire, reading aloud to each other, planning for the baby's arrival and talking about the future. Lucas began building a cradle from wood he had been saving, carving it with careful attention to every detail. "Do you think it will be a boy or a girl?" Lucas asked one evening, running his hand over the smooth wood. "I do not know," Jennifer said, knitting tiny booties. "But either way, he or she will be loved beyond measure." In March, with the first hints of spring appearing, Lucas expanded the cabin as he had promised, adding a second room that would serve as a bedroom for them, leaving the main room available for daily living and, eventually, for children to play in. Jennifer's pregnancy progressed smoothly, though the last months were uncomfortable. She found herself unable to help with much of the physical work, which frustrated her, but Lucas was unfailingly patient and supportive. "You are growing our child," he reminded her. "That is the most important work either of us could be doing right now." In late May, on a beautiful spring morning with wildflowers blooming across the meadow, Jennifer went into labor. Lucas rode for the doctor and for Martha from the hotel, who had delivered several babies and agreed to assist. The labor was long and difficult, and there were moments when Lucas, waiting anxiously outside, feared he might lose both Jennifer and the baby. But Jennifer was strong, and finally, as the sun set behind the mountains, a baby's cry rang through the cabin. Martha emerged with a tired but triumphant smile. "You have a son, Mr. Shaw, and your wife is doing just fine." Lucas rushed inside to find Jennifer propped up in bed, looking exhausted but radiant, holding a tiny bundle wrapped in one of the blankets she had sewn during her pregnancy. The baby had a shock of dark hair and was waving his tiny fists as if in protest of his sudden arrival into the world. "Meet your son," Jennifer said softly, her eyes shining with tears of joy and exhaustion. Lucas sat carefully on the edge of the bed and looked down at the tiny face of his child. He felt his heart expand in a way he had not known was possible, love flooding through him for this small person who was a perfect blend of him and Jennifer. "He is perfect," Lucas whispered, touching one tiny hand with his finger. The baby's hand closed around his finger with surprising strength, and Lucas felt tears slide down his face. "What should we name him?" "I was thinking Thomas, after the reverend who married us," Jennifer said. "Thomas Lucas Shaw." "Thomas Lucas Shaw," Lucas repeated, testing the name. "I like it. It is a strong name for what I am sure will be a strong boy." As Martha cleaned up and prepared to leave, and the doctor finished his examination declaring both mother and baby healthy, Lucas settled carefully beside Jennifer on the bed. They looked down at their son together, watching him sleep peacefully now that he had found his mother's warmth. "I have been thinking about that day we met at the stage," Jennifer said quietly. "When I arrived with all my broken dreams and you offered to help me build new ones. Did you ever imagine we would end up here?" "I hoped," Lucas admitted. "But hope and reality are different things. This reality, Jennifer, is better than anything I dared to hope for." "For me too," Jennifer agreed. "I thought I had lost everything when I learned Charles Whitmore had died. I thought my life was over before it really began. But instead I found you. I found this place. I found a life with meaning and purpose and love. My old dreams were broken, yes, but you kept your promise, Lucas. We built new dreams together, and they are more beautiful and real than anything I could have imagined." Lucas kissed her forehead gently, then kissed his son's tiny head with equal tenderness. "We are just getting started," he said. "This is just the beginning of all we will build together." The years that followed proved the truth of his words. The ranch grew and prospered, expanding steadily as Lucas and Jennifer worked side by side. Thomas was a healthy, active child who started walking early and seemed determined to explore every inch of the ranch. Jennifer proved to be a devoted mother, managing to balance her responsibilities to their son with her continued contributions to the ranch operations. When Thomas was 2, Jennifer gave birth to a daughter they named Catherine, who had her mother's dark hair and her father's blue eyes. And 3 years after that, another son arrived, whom they named Samuel. The cabin was expanded twice more, growing into a proper house with separate bedrooms for the children and a larger main room where the family gathered for meals and evening activities. Lucas and Jennifer became well-respected members of the Golden community. Lucas's reputation as a fair and honest rancher grew, and buyers sought out his cattle knowing they were getting quality animals. Jennifer became involved with the church and the school, contributing where she could to improve the community. She also began teaching music lessons to some of the children in town, putting her piano skills to use when a piano was finally shipped in for the church. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Lucas surprised Jennifer with a gift that made her cry with joy. He had saved money secretly for 2 years and purchased a piano, having it shipped carefully from Denver and installed in their now much larger home. "You once told me you could play the piano," Lucas said as Jennifer stared at the beautiful instrument in wonder. I thought it was time we had some music in this house that was not just Thomas banging on pots and pans. Jennifer sat down and ran her fingers over the keys, filling the house with music for the first time. The children gathered around in wonder, and Lucas stood in the doorway, watching his wife with love and pride. This was what they had built together, a home filled with love, music, laughter, and the promise of a bright future. As the children grew, they each developed their own personalities and interests. Thomas loved the ranch work and followed his father everywhere, learning to ride before he was 5 and showing a natural aptitude for handling cattle. Catherine was quieter and studious, loving books and learning, showing the same intellectual curiosity that Jennifer had possessed at that age. Samuel was the adventurous one, always climbing trees and exploring, keeping his parents constantly worried but never quite crossing into actual danger. Jennifer continued to keep the ranch books and discovered she had a real head for business. Her suggestions helped Lucas make smart decisions about investments and expansion. When silver mining declined and the town's population dropped, many ranches struggled, but the Shaw Ranch remained stable because of their careful planning and diversified operations. One evening, when they had been married for 15 years, Lucas and Jennifer sat together on the porch as they had so many times before, watching the sunset paint the mountains. Their children were inside, Thomas helping Catherine with her arithmetic, while Samuel built elaborate structures with wooden blocks Lucas had carved for him. "You ever think about what your life would have been like if Charles Whitmore had not died?" Lucas asked quietly. "If you had married him instead of me?" Jennifer was quiet for a moment, truly considering the question. "Sometimes," she admitted, "but not with regret, only with gratitude that fate had different plans. Charles Whitmore was, by all accounts, a good man, but he was not you, Lucas. And the life I would have had with him would not have been this life." She gestured to encompass the ranch, the mountains, the cabin that had become a home, and the sounds of their children inside. "This life, this family, this partnership we have built, it is everything I did not know I needed. I came here with broken dreams, yes, but you showed me that broken things can be remade into something even stronger and more beautiful." "You did that as much as I did," Lucas said, taking her hand. "You could have given up, could have seen this place and this life as beneath you. Instead, you rolled up your sleeves and helped build something amazing. You made this house a home, Jennifer. You made me a better man. You gave me children who will carry on what we have started here. Everything good in my life comes from that day I met you at the stage." "Everything good in my life comes from that day too," Jennifer agreed. "And from your promise that we would build new dreams together. You kept that promise, Lucas Shaw. Every single day you keep that promise." They sat in comfortable silence as the sun fully set and stars began to appear in the darkening sky. Inside, they could hear Thomas reading to his younger siblings, his voice confident and clear. This was legacy, Jennifer thought. Not just the land or the cattle or the house, but the family they had created, the love they had nurtured, the example they were setting for their children about what marriage and partnership truly meant. The years continued to unfold, bringing challenges and triumphs in equal measure. Droughts tested their resilience, but they had planned well and their creek never failed them. Harsh winters took their toll, but each year they were better prepared. The children grew into capable young adults who chose to stay on the ranch and contribute to its continued success. Thomas married at 22, bringing home a sweet-natured girl named Emma, who quickly became like a daughter to Jennifer and Lucas. They built a house on the far end of the property, close enough to be part of the ranch operations but far enough to establish their own space. When Emma gave birth to the first grandchild, a girl they named Jennifer after her grandmother. Jennifer Shaw stood on her porch and wept happy tears, marveling at how much her life had changed since that uncertain day when she arrived in Golden expecting to marry a stranger. Catherine eventually left the ranch to pursue teaching, settling in Denver but visiting often. She married a professor at the new university, and their home became a gathering place for intellectuals and artists, though Catherine always said nothing compared to the beauty of the mountains at her childhood home. Samuel, true to his adventurous nature, spent several years exploring the West before returning to the ranch and asking to take over the horse breeding operation that Lucas had started years before. He proved to have an exceptional gift with horses, and the Shaw Ranch horses became sought after throughout Colorado and beyond. As Jennifer and Lucas grew older, they gradually turned over more of the daily ranch operations to their children while remaining active advisors and helpers. They spent more time together, taking rides into the mountains, sitting on their porch and enjoying the fruits of all their hard work. On their 30th wedding anniversary, the entire family gathered for a celebration. Children and grandchildren filled the house, and friends from town joined them for a feast. Reverend Thomas, now quite elderly himself, offered a blessing over the gathering. 30 years ago, I married a mail-order bride to a cowboy, two strangers who were taking a leap of faith, he said. I confess I had my doubts about whether such an arrangement could truly lead to happiness. But Lucas and Jennifer Shaw have proven that with honesty, hard work, and genuine commitment, anything is possible. They have built not just a successful ranch, but a loving family and a legacy that will continue for generations. They are an inspiration to us all. As the party continued around them, Lucas pulled Jennifer aside and led her out to the porch, to their spot where they had spent so many evenings together. 30 years, Lucas said wonderingly. It seems like yesterday and like a lifetime all at once. We have lived several lifetimes in these 30 years, Jennifer agreed, leaning against him. And I would not change a single moment of it, not even the hard parts, the struggles and the setbacks, especially not those, Jennifer said firmly. Those moments taught us what we were capable of. They made us stronger, and they made the good times even sweeter because we knew how hard we had worked for them. Lucas wrapped his arms around his wife, and they stood together watching the sun set behind the mountains as they had done thousands of times before. But this time felt special, a moment of perfect clarity and gratitude for all they had built together. I kept my promise, Lucas said softly. We built new dreams together. You did more than keep your promise, Jennifer replied. You gave me a life beyond my wildest dreams, Lucas Shaw. You gave me love, family, purpose, and a home. You gave me everything. We gave each other everything, Lucas corrected gently. That is what partnership means, Jennifer. That is what real love means. As the stars emerged one by one in the darkening sky, and laughter and music spilled out from the house behind them, Jennifer and Lucas stood together. Two people who had started as strangers taking a risk and had become partners, lovers, best friends, and the foundation of a family that would continue for generations to come. The years ahead would bring more changes, as years always do. But whatever came, they would face it together, just as they always had. The mail-order bride who had arrived with broken dreams and the cowboy who had promised to help build new ones had created something beautiful and lasting. A love story written not in flowery words but in hard work, honest communication, daily commitment, and unwavering devotion to each other, and to the life they had chosen to build together. And that, Jennifer thought as she stood in the arms of her husband watching the mountains turn purple in the twilight, was the very best kind of love story there was. The kind that was real and true, and would last, until the end of their days and beyond, living on in the children and grandchildren who carried forward the legacy of two people who had dared to trust each other and build something beautiful from the broken pieces of shattered dreams. As they grew older still, Jennifer and Lucas became the beloved patriarch and matriarch of not just their own family, but of the entire Golden community. Young couples would seek their advice about marriage and ranching. Children would gather on the porch to hear Jennifer tell stories or Lucas share wisdom learned from decades of working the land. When Jennifer was 65, she compiled her journals from all the years of their marriage into a memoir, not for publication, but for their children and grandchildren. She wrote honestly about her fears when she first arrived in Golden, about the challenges of adapting to such a different life, about the moment she realized she was falling in love with Lucas, and about the incredible journey they had shared. She titled it simply Building New Dreams, and it became a treasured family heirloom passed down through generations. Lucas, at 70, finally began to slow down from the physical demands of ranching, though his mind remained sharp and his love for the land never diminished. He spent his time mentoring his grandchildren, teaching them to read the weather, understand the cattle, and respect the land that had given them all so much. One spring morning, as they approached their 40th wedding anniversary, Jennifer woke to find Lucas already awake, watching her with the same look of wonder and love he had worn on their wedding day. "What are you thinking?" she asked, reaching up to touch his face, now weathered and lined but still beloved. "I am thinking about how young we were when we made our vows," Lucas said. "How little we really knew each other, how uncertain everything was, and I am marveling at how right it all turned out despite the odds." "Love built on respect and partnership is never really a gamble," Jennifer said. "It is an investment that pays dividends every single day." "When did you become so wise?" Lucas asked with a smile. "I learned from my husband," Jennifer replied. "He taught me that broken dreams are not the end of the story, just the beginning of a new chapter." They celebrated their 40th anniversary surrounded by 4 children, 12 grandchildren, and 2 great-grandchildren, in the house that had grown from a simple cabin into a sprawling ranch house full of love and memories. The party lasted well into the night, with music and dancing and storytelling that wove together 4 decades of shared history. As the celebration wound down and family members prepared to head to their own homes scattered across the property, Thomas raised a glass for one final toast. "To my parents," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "who showed us all what true love looks like. Not the easy, romantic kind from storybooks, but the real, lasting kind built on hard work, mutual respect, and unwavering commitment. You built this ranch, you built this family, and you built a legacy of love that will endure for generations. Thank you for everything you have given us." "Hear, hear," the gathered family echoed, raising their glasses. Jennifer and Lucas, standing together with their hands clasped, looked out at the faces of their children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, and felt a sense of completion and profound gratitude. They had built something that would outlast them, something meaningful and beautiful. The seasons continued their endless cycle, and Jennifer and Lucas aged gracefully together, still deeply in love after more than 50 years of marriage. They took daily walks around the property, moving more slowly now, but still taking pleasure in the land they had worked so hard to cultivate. They sat together on the porch every evening without fail, watching the sunset and talking about everything and nothing, comfortable in the deep intimacy that comes from a lifetime spent truly knowing another person. When Lucas was 80, he fell ill with pneumonia during a particularly harsh winter. Jennifer nursed him with fierce devotion, and he recovered, but it was a reminder that their time was not infinite. After that scare, they made a point to tell each other, "I love you," even more often, and to express their gratitude for every additional day they were given together. One evening in late summer, as they sat on their beloved porch watching the mountains turn gold in the setting sun, Lucas turned to Jennifer and said, "If I could go back to that day when I met you at the stage, knowing everything I know now, I would not change a single thing. Every challenge, every struggle, every moment of uncertainty, it all led us here. And here is exactly where I want to be." "I feel the same," Jennifer said softly. "I came to Colorado territory with broken dreams and a broken heart, convinced my life was over before it truly began. Instead, I found you, and with you, I found everything I did not even know I was searching for. You kept your promise, Lucas Shaw. We built new dreams together, and they were more beautiful than anything I could have imagined." Lucas took her hand, the same gesture he had made thousands of times over their long marriage, but it never lost its significance. "And I would make that same promise again, every day for the rest of my life. To build dreams with you, to face whatever comes together, to love you with everything I am." They sat in comfortable silence as the sun completed its descent, and stars began to populate the darkening sky. Around them, the ranch hummed with the quiet activity of evening, cattle settling for the night, horses whinnying softly in the pasture, the distant sound of their great-grandchildren playing before bedtime. "This is what happiness looks like," Jennifer said quietly. "Not a single perfect moment, but a lifetime of moments strung together like beads on a thread, each one precious because we lived it together." "That is the finest thing you have ever said," Lucas replied, his voice rough with emotion. "And you have said many fine things over the years." As they finally stood to go inside, Lucas looked back at the mountains one more time, silhouetted now against a sky full of stars. "Thank you," he whispered, though Jennifer was not sure if he was thanking her, thanking God, or thanking the land itself for all it had given them. "Thank you," Jennifer echoed, understanding perfectly even though she did not know exactly what he was thanking. Because after 50 years of marriage, they had reached that point where words were often unnecessary, where understanding flowed between them as naturally as the creek that ran through their property. They lived together in health and happiness for several more years, reaching their 55th wedding anniversary and celebrating with an even larger gathering of family and friends. Jennifer was 80 and Lucas was 85, both still mentally sharp and physically capable despite their advanced age, testimony to the good life they had built and the clean mountain air they had breathed for decades. When Lucas passed away peacefully in his sleep at the age of 87, with Jennifer holding his hand, she felt her heart break even as she felt gratitude that they had been given so many years together. He had fallen asleep after an evening spent on their porch, after watching one more sunset together, after saying, "I love you" one more time. It was, she thought through her tears, exactly the kind of death he would have wanted, peaceful and at home, surrounded by the land he loved and the woman he had chosen to build a life with. The funeral drew people from all over Colorado, a testimony to the respect and love Lucas Shaw had earned throughout his life. Jennifer stood at his graveside, supported by her children and surrounded by grandchildren and great-grandchildren, and spoke words she had carefully prepared. "Lucas Shaw was the finest man I ever knew," she said, her voice steady despite her grief. "He was honest, hardworking, patient, and kind. He kept every promise he ever made, and he taught our family what it means to build something lasting. When I met him, I was lost and afraid, carrying broken dreams and no hope for the future. He looked at me that day and saw not what I had lost, but what I could become. He promised me that we would build new dreams together, and he spent 55 years keeping that promise. Because of him, I have lived a life richer and more meaningful than anything I could have imagined. Because of him, our family has this land, this legacy, and the example of what true love and partnership look like. I will miss him every day for the rest of my life, but I will never regret a single moment we spent together. He was, and always will be, the love of my life. After Lucas's death, Jennifer continued living on the ranch, though she moved into a smaller cottage that Samuel had built for her near the main house. She spent her remaining years watching her family flourish, telling stories to the youngest generation about their grandfather and the early days of the ranch, and writing in her journal, documenting the family history for future generations. She lived to be 85, passing away peacefully on a beautiful spring morning with wildflowers blooming across the meadow and the sound of the creek singing outside her window. Her last words, spoken to her daughter Catherine, who was holding her hand, were, "Tell your father I will see him soon. Tell him I never stopped building our dreams." Jennifer Shaw was buried beside her husband on a hill overlooking the ranch, under a headstone that read, Jennifer Owens Shaw, 1850–1935. Beloved wife, mother, grandmother, and great-grandmother, she came with broken dreams and built a legacy of love. The ranch continued to thrive under the management of their children and grandchildren, growing and adapting with the changing times but never losing the core values that Lucas and Jennifer had established. Hard work, honest dealings, respect for the land, and the understanding that true wealth is measured not in dollars but in family, legacy, and the love we share with others. The story of the mail-order bride who came to Golden, Colorado territory with broken dreams and the cowboy who promised, "We will build new dreams together," became a family legend, passed down through generations. It was a story of courage, resilience, love, and the incredible things that are possible when two people commit to building something together, even when the foundation starts with uncertainty and risk. And every evening, as the sun sets behind the mountains and paints the sky in shades of gold and pink, if you listen carefully, some family members swear you can still hear the echoes of laughter from the porch where Lucas and Jennifer Shaw spent so many evenings together, building their dreams and living their love story, one sunset at a time. The legacy they built, the love they shared, and the family they created endures, a living testimony to the power of kept promises, genuine partnership, and the beautiful truth that sometimes our broken dreams make way for something far better than we ever could have imagined. It is a story that proves that the strongest foundations are built not on perfection or romance, but on respect, honesty, hard work, and the simple daily choice to love and support each other, no matter what challenges arise. And that is how the mail-order bride with broken dreams and the cowboy who kept his promise built a life that became legendary, a love that lasted a lifetime, and a legacy that continues to inspire their descendants to this day. It is the story of Jennifer and Lucas Shaw, proof that the very best love stories are not written in books, but lived in the small, daily choices that two people make when they commit to building their dreams together.